What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Pokeblock Podcast. And let me tell you guys, this is going to be an interesting one to say the least, because on this very day, on Friday, we actually just barely got some brand new information about Pokemon Sword and Shield. We usually never get information about Sword and Shield or really any other main series Pokemon game on Fridays. It usually comes earlier in the week, so this is going to be fun. We're going to be able to talk about it hot off the press, and the information we did get isn't really the type of thing that I can cover on my own channel in a dedicated video, because it's not like the most groundbreaking thing ever. So this is going to be a UCast Studios podcast exclusive. So you guys are in for a special treat. It's actually really funny because I was in the middle of uploading my original podcast for today when this dropped. And in that podcast, I was talking about how today is the Pokemon World Championships, which is why this is being released on this day. And I was basically, I literally said, I was like, okay, well, today's Pokemon World Championships. They usually reveal something. So I guess we'll see I guess we'll wait and see what happens. And lo and behold, here we are. I'm just thankful that I didn't get the podcast uploaded before it dropped, because I would have been a little outdated today, and that's never fun in the YouTube world. But without any further ado, we're just going to go ahead and go over exactly what was talked about in today's new trailer and what was revealed, and we're just going to discuss about it. I'm going to give you my thoughts, basically what I do on my own channel just here, because like I said, a UCast Studios exclusive, so eat your heart out. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. The first thing that was revealed in this trailer, first off, all of this stuff to coincide with the Pokemon World Championships it's basically all battle mechanic stuff. So it's all competitive related, which is kind of part of the reason why I'm not going to talk about it on my channel, because I'm not really a competitive Pokemon player. That's not why I play Pokemon. Like, in addition to it just not being the most, like, hype, like, super interesting stuff in the world, I don't really play Pokemon for that reason. And so it's just not my, like, area of expertise, I guess you could say. It's not my forte. So, but I am obviously still interested enough to discuss it here. And the first thing we learned about in this trailer is Galarian Weezing's new ability. If you remember last week when Galarian Weezing was revealed, it was revealed to have two abilities, one of which was a question mark ability, which was very interesting. And today it actually got revealed, and it was revealed as a new ability called Neutralizing Gas, which negates the abilities of everyone else that is on the field, which is pretty broken to say the least, especially when Galarian Weezing already has a really good competitive type in Poison Fairy. And people were pointing out that you could actually play Galarian Weezing in a double battle with, say, Regigigas or Slaking, and that would negate Slaking's Truant ability, and it would negate Regigigas' Slow Start ability, which would essentially make both of those Pokemon overpowered as heck, because Regigigas has one of the highest base stats in the game, and it's only hindered by its Slow Start ability, which halves its attack. And does it have its attack or all of its stats for 5 turns? I honestly can't remember, but basically it halves its stats for 5 turns, and then you've got Slaking, whose Truant ability makes it unable to attack every other turn. So without those abilities, these Pokemon are basically gangbusters, because Slaking is basically the strongest Pokemon who's not a legendary and has base stats equivalent to a legendary. So paired with Galarian Weezing, that's going to be a force to reckon with, and I would not be surprised if that was just like straight up banned from competitive play. But moving on, we also got the reveal of some new held items, and I'm just going to say this ahead of time. If you're watching this on YouTube, you're going to have to like forgive the gameplay that it's just like stagnant right now, because since we literally just learned about this, I'm having to click through the Sword and Shield trailer to kind of like bullet point myself a little bit, refresh my memory, get all these details like straight so I can talk about them accurately with you guys. So the gameplay is going to be paused at points in this video, which normally doesn't happen, but hopefully you guys can bear with me. So yeah, like I said, we got 2 new held items. The first one is called Room Service, which is it's a very niche held item that lowers the Pokemon's speed who's holding it when Trick Room is in effect. Now, this is one of those situations where I can't really tell you guys like what that could mean in terms of strategy, because once again, I'm not a competitive player. I know Trick Room is a very key move because it like swaps the stats of Pokemon, I believe, or something like that. I sound very unknowledgeable and I'm very ashamed of myself right now, but yeah, like when I play Pokemon, not only do I not play competitive, but I also play like a 12-year-old in the sense that I never use attacks that don't actually do damage. I only use attacks that like actually hurt, like that actually like do actual physical damage. I don't use any stealth rocks. I'm not using any toxic. I'm not using any trick rooms. I'm literally just using earthquakes and hyper beams and literally just all the attacks that do the most damage. That's how I play. I'm very basic. When I do play in a more competitive scene, I'll get a little more strategic, but yeah, I'm very basic when it comes to like actual battling in Pokemon because I just don't do that, but I'm sure that has some very like competitive implications, which is cool for everyone who plays competitive. Like this should be a very exciting trailer for anyone and everyone who plays competitive because it looks like there's a lot of really cool things. The thing that I'm impressed with the most is the fact that they're really going in, it looks like, on kind of upping the competitive scene even more. And obviously, Pokemon, with having a world championships and everything, is already a very competitive like game. Like you can already get very competitive with it. So to add these little things in that they're adding in, that adds new strategies, it adds new dynamics. It really looks like they're trying to up that competitive aspect even more, which is really cool. So I'm very excited about that for everyone who's interested in competitive. And then the other held item that we also got revealed to us is the Eject Pack, which basically whenever a Pokemon's stats get lowered, it allows the Pokemon to immediately switch out of the battle, which is obviously a very good ability because it just is kind of like a fail-safe. It prevents your Pokemon from entering into the battle at a disadvantage or having to stay in the battle at a disadvantage. That can obviously be very good for things like Intimidate. If your Pokemon enters into a Pokemon with Intimidate, it works for basically tons of other stat changing moves. And I can definitely see how that could be very strategic as well. I feel like I really feel like a fish out of water right now. And it's so weird because obviously Pokemon is like my livelihood. It's what I do every day. It's what I wouldn't say obsess over, but like I love Pokemon. I'm so passionate about it. But Pokemon as a franchise is like a 30-sided die. And even as the biggest Pokemon fan ever, you can only touch and cover so many areas of it. And competitive Pokemon is just one of those areas that I do not cover just because I never got into competitive Pokemon. I'm not really like that competitive of a person anyway. Like even when I go like play basketball or whatever, I have problems with like trying to win and like freaking like stomping out the opponent. Like sometimes I'll like let up and like kind of like let them get back into the game if I'm winning or something, because I'm just like I'm naturally just like a friendly person, I guess. I'm not like super competitive, so that's probably part of it. But yeah, I love talking about this regardless. I love giving you guys my thoughts and opinions, and it's all still very positive. It's all like what we're seeing here, even though it's not my like speed, if you will. It's all still very positive. Like I said, I really like that they're I really like that they're improving the competitive scene. It looks like even more, they're putting more focus on it, and they're really like driving home the fact that, yeah, this is a competitive game and we want to keep it that way. I really do enjoy that. And moving on from the held items, though, we also got the introduction of a new move that is called Breaking Swipe, and it lowers the attack of every target that is hit, which I assume means it's an attack that can hit more than one target at the same time. They demonstrated all of these abilities with and moves and stuff with double battles, so I assume this is a move that can hit multiple targets at once if you are in a double battle, and lowering the attack while also doing damage is very, very nice. That reminds me of the Moxie ability, because the Moxie ability, whenever you feint a Pokemon, your attack goes up and that can get out of hand and like give you a huge advantage really quickly. So being able to not even have to worry about feinting a Pokemon to get that attack boost, or I should say attack lowered in this case, is basically just as good, because you're doing damage to your opponent while limiting the amount of damage they can do to you. And while we don't know what the base power is, if it's like, say, even a decent move that's like 70 base power, or it's even like better than that, like maybe 80 or 90, that would be insane. That's another game breaking type of thing, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens there. Moving on, though, we also got the introduction of another new ability specifically for Corviknight, and specifically its hidden ability. And that is known as Mirror Armor, and basically what this does is reflect the stat changes that it receives in battle. So any increases or decreases to its stats that it receives, it will also dish back to the opponent. So basically, if Corviknight comes into a Pokemon that has Intimidate, its attack is lowered. The opposing Pokemon's attack will also be lowered, and etc., etc. And that changes the game a lot, because if you have got a Corviknight with a hidden ability, that can basically stave off your opponent from trying any funny business with your stats, which can allow you to basically just do what you want to do in terms of your attack plan, which makes the battle a whole lot simpler. And once again, it's just another ability that provides another strategy. It provides a little more depth, I feel like, and I think it just is giving people a reason to use these Galar Pokemon, and like it's basically making them competitive, because a big thing that competitive faces is that the same like handful of Pokemon are used all the time, 20, 30, 40, whatever it is. The same limited number of Pokemon that are like the ones that are competitively viable are the ones that are essentially used all the time. And that obviously makes for a boring kind of scenario, because everyone ends up using the same Pokemon all the time. So the fact that they are introducing new strategies and making like these new Galar Pokemon specifically competitive is going to, once again, just freshen, like, it's not only going to add new strategies to the competitive scene, it's not only going to intensify it, but it's also going to freshen it up in that you're adding in new Pokemon. And I wouldn't be surprised with the whole Galar National Pokedex situation that they're going to also balance it out in a way that allows new Pokemon that weren't previously competitively viable to be competitively viable. That's something that they stated they wanted to do, is balance out the game, and that's just going to help the competitive scene even more. So with all of this new stuff that's being introduced today, with as far as abilities, held items, moves, etc., combined with the possible rebalancing and introduction of new Pokemon as well, I think this whole situation that's going down with the National Dex is actually going to be a blessing in disguise when it all comes down to it, because it looks like they are putting a lot of focus on the competitive side of things. And if the competitive side of things not only gets like intensified or like livened up a little bit with all of this with all of these new strategies and moves and whatnot, but it also gets freshened up with new Pokemon that are able to be used, that kind of like increases the pool of Pokemon that you can actually have on your team in a competitive sense, that's just going to make it that much better. Like, I don't even play competitive, like I said, and I can already see the appeal of that. So I think this is a great move on Game Freak's part with what they're doing, and hopefully they do kind of take the initiative with that balancing of the Pokedex and actually do go ahead and make some new Pokemon actually viable that weren't viable before, because that would be a great way to do things. And then moving on from there, the next thing the trailer talks about is secondary effects of max moves for Dynamax Pokemon. Dynamaxing is basically the new battle gimmick in this generation, and it's basically a combination of Mega Evolutions and Z moves where every Pokemon can use or can become Dynamaxed like Z moves, but it basically changes, it increases the stats of the Pokemon and just makes them tougher like Mega Evolution. And then the other thing is that you can only use it for 3 turns, so that's another similarity to Z moves. But I guess the other similarity to Z moves that there also is that when you Dynamax a Pokemon, you get what is called a max move, where its regular moves turn into these super powered versions of its regular moves that basically just become a lot more powerful. But as we learned today, they also have secondary effects where there's different things like Dynamax Pokemon can shrug off moves that cause flinching so they won't get flinched. They can break through protect and different things like that and still cause damage. If you're using a water max move, you can summon the rain. If you're using a fighting type max move, that increases the attack of the user and all of its other allies. So there's that. There's just a bunch of different things that, once again, just add more strategy, just add a more dynamic, no pun intended, to the competitive side. And I think Dynamax Pokemon are really going to add another really fresh perspective on competitive, because they, like, without Mega Evolutions and Z moves, they are going to be the thing to use. And with their max moves, their secondary effects, their stat increases, and the fact that you can only use it for 3 turns and any Pokemon can use it, is really just going to provide for a lot of fun. And I think it's going to be, like, it's not only going to provide for fun in the competitive scene, but it's also going to provide for fun in the regular game as well, because as we have seen in the regular game, Dynamax Pokemon are very hard to take down. They are significantly stronger, and they actually are a challenge to defeat, and that's going to be a lot of fun to go through and, like, deal with in the main game, because it's actually going to provide a challenge. But in competitive, it's going to be just that much more fun, because obviously there's going to be the skill of your opponent is going to be that much greater, so they might be able to take out your Dynamax Pokemon a little easier than they could in the main story, for instance. But there's also the fact that you only have it for 3 turns, so you've got to use it very wisely. And I just feel like there's so many layers being added to the competitive scene here that is really going to make it a fun time to jump into competitive if you're not already into it. And if you're into it, it's going to make it so you don't necessarily have to relearn all of the rules per se. Doesn't bring everyone back to square one. But like I've been saying, it just freshens it up just enough to the point where everyone can have a crack at it. Everyone can kind of basically, like, start at an even level when it comes to learning everything that's being brought to the table with this generation. And that can allow some new players to enter in, like I said, and kind of pick it up and have some fun and just really, like, maybe, like, enjoy a different side of Pokemon that they previously didn't feel like they could get into. So I'm really, this isn't, like, the greatest part of Pokemon for me. It's not why I play it, but I'm really excited about it just because it just makes the game itself that much more enjoyable. Because, like, with a game like Pokemon, having a good competitive scene is always super important. And I think this is just doing a lot for the competitive scene of Pokemon. I think it's really going to make for a lot of fun. It's going to drive up the competition. It's just going to do a lot of really fun things. And I'm really excited about it, honestly. And then there were a couple things that weren't talked about in the trailer, because that's pretty much all that was talked about in the trailer, that were talked about on the website. And that was basically just all the different online modes that were discussed, which I actually think are really cool. The first one that caught my eye was the ranked battle mode, which is essentially a ranked mode like many other online games have, where you have an online leaderboard, you have your own rank, and basically you can know where you stand as like the best trainer in the world, because you will officially have a rank, whether it's first place, 5th place, 10th place, 100th place. You will know like how good of a Pokemon trainer you are right away. You'll know if you're the 100th best or the 69th best or the 420th best or the 100th best or even the first best. Like, I think that's really cool, and I don't believe that has happened in Pokemon yet. I'm pretty sure it hasn't. So to have it here is really cool. Like, that kind of makes me want to play, just so I can see how well I can actually do and like see how high I can get my rank. Because just the fact that you have a public rank just makes you want to like show it off and like get the best possible rank. And that's coming from a person who, once again, isn't a competitive player. So I think that's going to make for a lot of fun competitive online battles, just even outside of like tournaments and stuff like that. But then they also talked about how there's just casual battles too, that where you can basically just play for fun. It doesn't really matter, which is also really cool. And then another feature that they also talked about that I also thought was really cool is the rental battle system, where you can basically try out different teams by renting them from other people. Kind of like Pokemon Stadium, except the teams that you're going to be renting are other people's teams that they have put up for rent. So basically, if you have, say, like a rain dance team that you really like, that you kind of just want to like share with other people and let them try it out, you can put it up for rent, and then other people can essentially try out your team in battle and see if they like playing a rain team, and then from there, if they like it, they can make a team of their own. I think that's really cool because it allows people to jump into the competitive scene right away, basically, with a really competitively viable team without really having to grind and do all that stuff, so they can basically just see if they like it and see if it's fun for them, and then from there they can go ahead and try it out themselves. So I think all of this is just not only making the competitive scene better, but it's making it more accessible, which is always good, because the more people you have like trying to compete, the better your competition is going to be, because you're going to have more competitors. And so everything I'm seeing from this trailer, from this news drop, just all the features, modes, what have you, I'm seeing everything looks good. Everything looks great. And in addition to just like all the technical stuff and talking about things that look great, the game itself just looks really good. I mean, this wasn't really a graphical showcase type of trailer, but they did obviously show a lot of animations and moves, and you could see the models of the Pokemon, and we got to see double battles for the first time, and I personally just think everything looks really crisp and clean. There were a lot of really good battle animations that looked really good, and so I think even though this wasn't like the most groundbreaking trailer that is going to bring the most hype, because it just didn't have the like spiciest details, if you will, I think this was a very positive trailer for Pokemon Sword and Shield, because it showed that the competitive scene is going to be extremely healthy, most likely as healthy as it has ever been, and it showed promise in terms of other aspects of the game that people have worried about before this, like the graphics and the animations and other things like that. It showed that there are some really cool animations. It showed that there are really cool things that are there to look forward to with this game, basically. And I don't know, like, Obviously I am hyped for Pokemon Sword and Shield. I've made that abundantly clear. And while this trailer, like I said, it's not the biggest trailer in the world. It's not the greatest. It's not blowing my mind like the previous trailer did. It just kind of is reassuring me that much more that these games are going to be great, because with something like competitive, that's something that really requires some attention to refine. And Game Freak, if they really were lazy like everyone likes to suggest, they could basically just leave the competitive scene pat. They could just have it stand pat, and you couldn't really complain because the competitive scene was already good and it was already fine the way it was. So like, it basically, like, they could get away with doing something like that, but they didn't. They've gone out of their way to introduce new mechanics, new abilities, new moves, new held items, new modes, just to make it as accessible and healthy as possible. And that shows effort on their part, and I think that should be commended. So I commend Game Freak 100% for taking this step and trying to make the already really good competitive scene of Pokemon just that much better. And I think it's also going to speak to the other sides of the game as well, in terms of like the story, the design, the world, just the non-competitive things. I think it's going to speak to how well those are going to do too, because if they're doing this to the competitive side of Pokemon when they don't really have to, imagine what they're going to do with like the region, the story, all of that stuff that really does need that extra attention because it's a new game. So I think this is just cause for a lot of excitement, a lot of optimism, and I am really looking forward to these games just that much more because of this. So with all that being said, that's where we're going to end it off here, but I really hope you guys enjoyed this exclusive UCast Studios coverage of the brand new Sword and Shield trailer that typically is never going to happen, but due to circumstance, that's the way it happened. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this extended coverage of all of this stuff that was just revealed. I had a lot of fun doing it. If you are new to the UCast Studios channel or the podcast because you're coming over here from my channel, definitely subscribe if you're on the YouTube channel. Follow if you're on Spotify or iTunes. We do this every Friday. We talk about Pokemon content of all kinds, whether it's just kind of spitballing, if you will, talking about random topics, or talking about new news and trailers and just reacting to them and doing all that type of stuff. It's just a really fun time, and it supports my main channel if you are a fan over there. So that is very much appreciated. Or if you just like Pokemon in general and you happen to stumble upon this, welcome. It's a great time. So yeah, be sure to follow if you're new, and if you are also new to me, you can check me out on my channel Hoops and Hip Hop, where I do a ton of Pokemon content of all times, of all kinds. So that's a fun time as well. And yeah, just be sure to follow and come back because we would love to have you. So with all that being said, I'll be back next Friday with another topic. As always, it's going to be a lot of fun. I hope you guys have a great weekend as well. And until the next one, as always, I will catch you guys later.